I'm the Education USA advisor in Managua, Nicaragua. I want to let you know that your microphones will be muted for the remaining of the sessions and your cameras will be set to off. Today, we have a great webinar organized for all of you guys on how strategically choose your recommenders. I know that this is something difficult for most international students when applying to a college or university in the United States. And we have two wonderful guests with us today, Joe Espero from Bentley University and Laura Baron from Emporia State University. All right, so I want to welcome you guys for this webinar. I will go ahead and share my screen with you guys so that we can begin. All right. So just a reminder, next week we have our upcoming webinar on June 9th at 4 p.m., playing sports in college. And a reminder, we have Marta Carranza on Zoom, Q&A. Marta Carranza, she will be picking up your questions, and at the end, we will answer them. And Mo Berg, she's also on Facebook, and she will help me out so that we can answer them for you. Now, for all of you guys joining in today, a briefing on Education USA. So what is this? We are a global network, all right? um, Found in more than 400 advising centers globally in 175 countries. And our mission is to help and guide students find information on how to apply to institutions or universities in the United States, from researching the different processes and requirements that each institution may have when applying for all the different levels, whether it be undergraduate or graduate studies. So one of the first things that we have is that our services are completely free, and we provide current and accurate information on US studies. The services that we offer could be defined in 5 steps. The first one being researching your options. There are more than 4,700 institutions accredited in the United States, and this could be a little bit overwhelming. It could be difficult just to think about how to choose one, how to go about this one. So what we do is that we provide a series of tools and search engines so that you can go ahead and find out which institution best fits your needs academically, which institution fits your needs financially, which falls into our next steps. All right. We are not a scholarship center, but we do provide information so that you can go ahead and understand how to apply to the different um, scholarships or financial finance, or how to finance your studies, or how to apply for different loans. We also provide information on how to complete your application. We can guide you on the different processes by providing you information on how to write your essays, how to write your letters of recommendation, which is right now we have we have very special guests who will be explaining what it's like on the admission committee when they read this important component. Also, how to apply for your student visa. I just want to make one note here that we do not have any influence, or we cannot even guarantee that you will acquire the student visa. What we do is we provide a series of information on what documents to take for your appointment, or how to schedule your appointment, how to fill out the forms, and so on and so forth. And last but not least is the part on preparing for your departure once you have been admitted to an institution to the United States. This is very important because we can provide you a series of steps on what to take, what not to take, what it would be better to buy in the US, how to adapt to culture, um, what free resources are available in the different campuses in the US, for example, and how to adapt to this new transition. And we also have some very common questions when it comes to studying in the United States. Does Education USA have scholarships? These are some frequently asked questions that we have. We do not. We guide students on how to find the right institution, how to apply for funding, and the requirements that international students must have in order to get it. All right. So we help you and we support you in your journey through education in the U.S. Now, the next question: can you help me find a short-term study abroad program or an internship? Now, this is very important. We do not have a program in such, but we can guide you find it. All right. Also, are there any opportunities to improve my English? For any student that would like to apply to an undergraduate degree, whether it be an associate's, a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD, or a doctorate program, just know that you must show proof of English proficiency when applying to a college or university. So there are institutions or universities that have classes or have courses when if you want to immerse yourself in the English language, but you have to apply, and there are different fees that you must pay and also steps. Do we have any partnerships or agreements with specific US colleges and universities? And the answer to this is no. We are completely unbiased. We represent the 4,700 universities that are accredited in the United States. And so we do not have we do not have any agreements with any of them. All right. And now we will go ahead and do a short poll. We want to get to know who is here today. Okay. So just to know the audience, take a time to answer the following poll. I'll give you a few minutes. There's a poll on your screen right now. So go ahead and answer the following questions. Where are you joining us from? We always like to know where our audience are connecting from. The next question that is here is, have you chosen a recommender? We also like to know about it. And also, what academic terms are you applying to 2021, 2022? And what is your desired level of study? All right, so I'll give you a few minutes for you guys to answer it. Okay, just a few seconds, and I will end the poll. Okay, we still have some people voting. Great, I'll give you 5 more seconds. All right. So we have a great deal of participants from Costa Rica, 36%, also from Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico. Okay, those are our major countries or participants being represented. 36% have chosen their recommender and 43% have not. So this is a great opportunity for you guys to learn from an admission representative on how to do this, how to choose that person who will vouch, who will speak for you on behalf to these universities. What academic programs or terms are you applying to? Okay, we have 7% are applying to fall 2021, also 7% 2022 spring. We have a great deal on 2022, 14%, and fall 2020 to 43%. So we have a lot of expectations from the audience for 2022 and 2023. So that's great. What is your desired field of study? Okay, we have 50% undergraduate, 36% graduate, and 14% others. All right. So thank you so much for allowing us to know more about this. So now, with no further ado, we have Joseph Spero, the Associate Director, Office of Undergraduate Admission from Bentley University, and Laura Byron Reyes from a Graduate Assistant Office of International Education from Emporia State University. Thank you guys and welcome. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
All right. Good to go. Thank you, Jackson, for the warm introduction. And hello, everyone. So great to be with you in this virtual space. Obviously, wish we can all be together in person, but we're going to make the best of it. And we have two great presentations lined up for you today. So I'm going to be focusing in on strategically choosing your recommenders at the undergraduate level. So just real quickly, the introduction. My name is Joe Sparrow, Associate Director of Undergraduate Admission at Bentley University. I oversee, I work with prospective students in both the Americas, Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the UK. So there's a chance I will be potentially reading your application this coming fall, or next fall rather, when you're applying. And really the goal here today, throughout this whole process, is really to prepare your winning application. So all these steps that you're taking, attending these different sessions, are really to help you gear your application for these specific universities that you're looking to apply to. And one of the key parts or key ingredients of creating a winning application is strategically choosing one of your recommenders or multiple recommenders. And we're going to talk a little bit about research, personal assessment, things to consider, and then finally getting down to choosing your recommenders. So I do have a poll question to start. Jackson, if you want to launch a poll, if you don't mind. Who has begun their university research?
And launch the next poll. There you go. Oops, I'm sorry. There you go. Okay, so it says that 88% or 83%. Okay, there's people still voting, so we're gonna give it a few minutes.
We'll give it till 30 seconds. We'll give them 10 more seconds, and then we'll end the polling.
All right.
But this is great. So based on the numbers, it looks like the majority have at least started their university research, and that's great. I'm really happy to hear that. We can stop sharing the results. So now going into, why research is so important. The research aspect really is, it's going to help you familiarize yourself with not only, the schools that you're looking at, but also familiarize yourself with the admission profile. And this really helps in choosing that recommender. What majors does the school offer? Does it offer the majors that you're interested in or programs that you're interested in? You want to be able to use the appropriate resources as well. So Education USA, phenomenal resource, College Board, CIS, Princeton Review, all these different search engines really can provide you with a lot of data and information on how to really build your winning application. And then again, focusing on those specific areas of choosing a recommender. And again, you want to gear your application to appeal towards the particular schools that you're looking at. Are you applying to STEM schools? Are you looking at business universities, liberal arts schools? And all that really does play a pivotal role in, again, selecting a recommender. So I do have another poll. This is in regards to a personal assessment, and the personal assessment piece is so crucial, and it's something that you should all be doing right now. And I'll explain what the personal assessment is. So, and that's a question that is being asked in the poll right now. So self-evaluation. So it looks like it's a mixed bag split. So 40% know what a self-evaluation is, around 60% don't. So let me explain to you what question, these are the self-evaluation or the personal assessment really is are questions that you should be asking yourself within the context of preparing your application. And so these are some of the questions that, and this actually is a form, and I'll actually share a picture of what the form looks like, of really just things that you should be thinking about as you are researching schools and as you're really starting to gear up to apply to schools in the summer or for the fall rather. So you really want to describe your academic accomplishments, things that you're most proud of, tell why you take pride in that. You really want to start jotting down, what you've learned about yourself as a student in class thus far. You want to start focusing on what kind of learner you are, which academic setting or assignments make you thrive, what are your interests. You want to also start thinking about, what do you consider to be your strongest attributes as a student, and what are some areas for growth. 3 most distinguishing or most admirable qualities. And finally, what do you hope to accomplish in a college fair, in college and after? Consider your career goals and broader goals as well. And this is just a picture of a self-assessment form where it's essentially a Word document where you can just start writing down. And it's more of again, it's an evaluation of yourself to really figure out who you are, what you're thinking about. And this really can help with helping your recommender as well, because you're going to hand this document to your recommender. So that way they have a lot of information to really kind of go off to start, building and writing a strong recommendation for you. But this self-assessment form also is a resource for you as you are preparing for interviews or writing your admission essay, because you're jotting down all these ideas about yourself, and that can really, again, springboard into different areas. And the more information that you can provide, the better it will be for you and your recommender. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty of strategically choosing a recommender. So when should this process begin? So essentially, once you have a general sense of the schools that you're applying to, the type of schools that you want to apply to, you should start thinking strategically about the folks that you want to ask. So I recommend making a list to stay organized. I think a lot of admission reps will say the same thing. You want to ask early. So if you know ahead of time, I know that I want to do engineering, these are the only schools that I'm going to be applying to, you can start asking early. So start looking at, potentially some of your science and math teachers. You want to give at least 4 to 6 weeks of prep time. So the more prep time that you give your recommender, the more time that they have to produce a quality letter of recommendation. The question always comes up, how do I request a letter of recommendation? So really, depending on the relationship you have with the recommender, you can ask in person. Obviously, we know in this virtual world, that's not always the case. But if you have the opportunity to ask in person, that's always a great personal touch. But if you don't, sending an email is the next best step, or setting up a Zoom meeting, whatever it may be. If you do ask in person, always follow up via email, just as a reminder. And if you do have folks that agree to, write your letter of recommendation, make sure you always follow up again with a thank you note or letter. I sometimes think that handwritten letters go a long way as well, because it shows that you care. I mean, they took the time out of their schedule to really advocate for you and write a letter. So you wanted to show a token of appreciation towards them. So essentially, and this goes into how do I request the letter recommendation within the common application, since that's kind of the area I know best. Once you choose your recommender, you can add them to your application, and so they'll get a link that they will have to create an account, and they can fill out they can add your recommendation directly via the common application, or they can decline that invitation, and they can have a paper or a Word document that they could send to you or your school counselor, and that could be loaded to your application. What should I prepare or what should I provide the recommender? Well, going back to the self-evaluation form, you should hand them that form. or your personal assessment form rather, you should hand them that, because that's going to talk about, your skills and your activities and things like that outside of the classroom. Chances are, your school counselor or even some of your teachers have a large caseload. They have a lot of students. They might know you from being in class, but they might not know what your talents and passions are outside of the classroom. So the more information you can provide your recommender, the better. If it's going to be a teacher, I highly recommend having a 3 to 4 sentence summary about the institutions that you are applying to, and we'll get into that in just a few moments. But I think that's really important as well. So they can gear your recommendation towards those specific institutions, especially if they're a specialty institution. You want to make sure the recommender is hitting those key points that really highlight your skill set. And the importance, how important are letters of recommendation in relation to field of study, and even, and I'll take it a step further, in addition to the whole entire review process. Letters of recommendation, especially for an international student, holds a ton of weight, especially from your school counselor. It can sway a decision one way or another. It might potentially require, folks on the admission committee to follow up, especially if maybe there are some discrepancies in your letter of recommendation. But also they can bring to light too, if the school you're applying to, if you're applying to a business school, but your letter of recommendation just speaks about how you want to be a doctor or a physicist, well, chances are that might not be the best fit. And we have it every year at Bentley, because we are a business school. We get students applying all the time. Oh, I can't wait to be a doctor, or I want to be a rocket scientist. Well, that's great. That's awesome. But you're gearing your recommendation towards the wrong university, and we're trying to find that right fit, not only for Bentley but for the student. So would we want to choose a student that wants to be a rocket scientist when we know that we can't prepare them for that? So that comes into that research aspect of knowing the types of schools that you are applying to. So now, preparing your recommendation. Really, there are 2 types of recommendations that we really want to focus in on. So the teacher recommendation focuses in on the student as an academician. So essentially, they're going to be highlighting your skills within the context of their class. They're going to talk about your strengths, areas of improvement or growth. We always like seeing that in comparison to your classmates, where you stand in terms of class rank, things like that. Whereas your guidance counselor, your school counselor, is going to kind of take a look at the big picture. They're going to talk about your academic abilities, but they're going to talk about your character, your extracurricular activities, your leadership, and really just kind of that, and then any discrepancies or any familiar or family issues, pardon me, that you may have, and because those are some context that we like to see on the application. And I think if it's highlighted on your application or on your letter recommendation, that's just going to provide more context to the admission committee as well. So, and again, if you are choosing a teacher, don't choose the teacher that you are getting an easy A in their class, because that's not going to speak volumes to your ability. I think sometimes it's important to find a class where maybe you're not, it's not your best class, but not your worst class either. A class where really that you've shown tremendous growth. So maybe math class, you struggled a little bit early on, but you really have picked up the pace, and your teacher can really speak to the hard work and determination that you've put in. And again, that resonates with the admission committee. And again, another thing as well, you really want to make sure and I mentioned it briefly, but you really want to make sure that you are providing, especially your teacher, with just a brief, synopsis of the universities that you're applying to, the due dates as well. That's really, really important, because you want to make sure that they're staying on track as you go through this recommendation process. And I always, as just a word of caution as well, unless you're applying just to one school for early decision, your chances are you're going to have multiple letters of recommendation, and you're going to be strategic about choosing those letter recommendations. So if you are applying to, say, a business school, chances are you want to have maybe a letter recommendation from your math teacher, so maybe something from a business class in addition to your school counselor. If you're applying to an engineering school, something within science, things like that. So you want to have multiple recommenders and gear them towards the institutions that you're applying to. But you also want to be wary of making sure that you're not including the specific name of the university, because if you're applying to 5 different types of business schools, you don't want Bentley to be on the letter recommendation towards all 5 other institutions you're applying to. I mean, we would love it, Bentley, because it just shows that Bentley is on your list of your recommenders, or on your search list, but you just want to be wary of that as well. And for those writing recommenders, I know we have recommendations. I know we have some school counselors and teachers in the audience. Your ultimate goal is to really make the student come alive. So talking about their contributions to the classroom discussion, you want to provide specific examples. That always helps provide context. Their assessment as a leader or team player, or both. Their ability to receive constructive feedback. Their time management skills, that's always really important. And then, respect to varying viewpoints as well. And going back to the students, that's where that personal assessment or self-assessment form really comes into play, because you're going to provide them with that list, and then from here they're going to be able to craft a recommendation for the specific institutions that you are looking to apply to. So that is all I have for right now, just in terms of strategically choosing your recommendations. I know I want to pass it over to Laura to talk about this from the graduate school level, but be happy to answer any questions after Laura's presentation.
Hi, everyone. So nice to meet you all and to be here joining from Emporia on behalf of Emporia State University. Today, I'm going to be talking about choosing your recommenders, but for grad school. And I'm going to be talking not only from, the recruitment perspective, but also from the student perspective, because I am a graduate student myself. That's what I do for the Office of International Education. I applied for a graduate assistantship, and that's how I'm funding my studies. So let's go ahead and start sharing my screen so we can get started. All right. Okay. So I wanted to start out pointing out that recommendation letters are very, very different from motivation/cover letters. In those letters, you as the student are describing your own work, why you consider yourself to be a good fit for the graduate program of your choice, whether that's a master's or a PhD. That's your opportunity to talk about your own goals. But here in a recommendation letter, what you're gonna do is have someone else vouch for you, for your soft and your hard skills. And in that perspective, sorry, there's a train passing by. And in that perspective, I think it's more often than not, it's the soft skills that universities are looking for more and more. That's what really makes a candidate stand out from the rest of the pool of candidates. It's more important to point them out, who you are as a person and how you're going to use the academic skills that you learn, how you're going to use them, instead of just talking about your achievements. And also because you already had the opportunity to talk about them in your motivation letter. All right, I'm going to talk about 4 specific recommendations, and we're going to start with the academic versus job-oriented recommendations about research, extracurriculars and volunteering, and lastly, we're going to talk about Emporia State, but that's at the very, very end. All right, academic versus job-oriented recommenders. The context matters. I think that's going to be the main topic that I'm going to keep repeating throughout this presentation. Your context matters. You cannot compare your own context, or this is not a one-size-fits-all approach, because not everyone has had the same opportunities, the same experience, and that's just understandable. That's understandable, and more now than ever with our current situation, our current pandemic. The recruiters are very mindful of that, and they're very understanding. So all that goes to say, work with what you have. Trust that if you have the opportunity to apply for a program, it's because you have the skills and the experience necessary to apply and to get admitted. So pick a recommender that fits with your experience, with your context. So if you haven't had like a job experience, don't go picking you're not going to have a job recommender. So go with academic oriented um, recommendations. Same with, as the main theme, your recommenders should know you. And if you have to choose someone who is going to ask you to write the letter and then they will sign it, I don't think that's a good approach to start with. So I would just go ahead and say that the recommender should be someone that can back up what you already said about yourself in that motivation letter. Okay, about research, because I think that's the main theme when we are applying to grad school. Some people are, not familiar with research, but in the case that you are, you might have not had any of your work published, and that's fine because it shows that just shows commitment to learning. So you can ask your academic advisor from your undergraduate. If you did a thesis, you can ask your thesis advisor, or maybe a class that you wrote a really good research paper for. You can ask that professor to, write a recommendation. If you don't have research, but you do have work experience, go ahead and ask your work supervisor. That's completely valid too, because we understand that not everyone, we all have different approaches to life. We all have different timings, and some people just have to start working right after school, and that's completely understandable too. In case that, no work experience, no research experience, keep in mind that you can get creative with the activities that you engage yourself in. For example, you can consider creating a research group with a professor and inviting other students. That can be great experience and a great recommendation. Or you can also do research in your free time, work with people from other universities. It doesn't necessarily have to be your own university. It can be just a group that you work with in your free time. We can get creative with this. And then regarding extracurriculars, we understand that extracurriculars are not very common in Latin America, and especially now with the pandemic, that there might not be as many opportunities. But in case that things are starting to open up a little bit, you can consider volunteering in church, with children, with elderly. Those things really show and back up your soft skills. So you can be strategic with them. Again, it's choices. It's not like a completely necessary thing. And I think I will stop there so we can continue with the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Laura, for so much information and insight from, you know, uh, the admissions point of view, which is something that I think our audience can take a lot from. We have a few questions for you guys, and I will go ahead and maybe we can answer them from an undergraduate point of view and also a graduate. So the first one being is why should my recommender explain my deficiencies, or shouldn't they just focus on my strength only?
That's a great question. I think, your teacher, I think if it speaks to growth as well, sometimes looking at it from a negative perspective isn't the best way. If you're deficient in one thing, how are you working to improve that? And I think so that's something that colleges are looking for as well, of improvement. If they're sticking to it, what's their work ethic like as well? Because that's going to resonate with us of, wow, this student really is putting in the work to stay after class, things like that. So while they might be deficient in an area, kind of look at it from a glass half full perspective of, okay, how are they looking to improve, and what are the steps that they're taking? And that's something that I know we look for at Bentley.
Thank you.
I would just back up the same thing, and I would not disencourage you to avoid, you shouldn't avoid putting those things, because at the end of the day, we're all humans. And especially for the undergraduate level, we know that a lot of students haven't had much experience, and we don't expect them to, because, we're right out of high school, or like in graduate school even, like we're all learning, and it's okay to make mistakes. And as long as we learn from them, as long as we, get something from those mistakes, it's completely allowed and acceptable to make mistakes. Like everyone here makes mistakes, and that's where we grow from.
Thank you. And the next question is, can you explain what soft and hard skills are?
From the grad or undergraduate, you want to go? Want me to go
Yeah,
first?
yeah.
So, so your soft skills are more like, your communication aspect, how you communicate, and so those soft skills are really really important. The hard skills I look at as more like technical skills of like your work in the classroom, but the soft skills, how you communicate, how you treat others as well. Those are really important attributes that we're looking for. Not only are you a leader, do you lead by example, but also how do you treat your classmates? How do you treat your staff or your teachers as well? And having the balance of both in a letter recommendation will certainly resonate with the admission committee.
Absolutely. I would say that that's where a lot of the recommendation letters come into place, backing up your soft skills, because at the end of the day, right now, more than ever, it matters more who you are as a person than what you're able to do in the classroom. Hard skills like analytical skills are very important, of course, especially if you're going to go into a research oriented program, like graduate program, but it also matters who you are, like doing that work. Are you detail oriented? Are you responsible? Are you respectful? Are you a good team leader, or are you good working with teams? All those things matter, and at the end of the day, that's going to decide, or that's going to tell how your output, how you put to use your hard skills.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question is, can I use the same letter recommendation for different applications?
Yeah, you absolutely can. But again, just as I mentioned, you want to be wary of not listing the specific schools. So if someone writes, if you're writing, getting a letter from your math teacher and they say, I think this student will be a great fit for Bentley, chances are you probably don't want to use it for your other 4 schools that you're applying to. So just be wary of that. But it's definitely important, especially again, if the chances are if you're applying to specific schools that are focusing on like specialty schools, like STEM schools, business schools, engineering, whatever it may be, chances are those schools are looking for those specific types of recommendations. So those are definitely transferable.
Yeah, I would say the same thing for the graduate level, especially because we all want to apply to more than just 1 or 2 schools, to mix our chances are bigger. So absolutely, you can absolutely use the same letter for multiple schools.
Definitely. Thank you. Now, can a recommendation letter come from a course apart from the school that you're going to? Or it could be maybe a mentor. So,
Yeah, I mean, the thing that you want to pay attention to is how many letters of recommendation each institution accepts. So there are some schools where and this is where that research part comes in, 2 to 3 letters of recommendation. Anything over that, they'll either throw away your letter of recommendation, or they might not even review your application. There are some schools that are very selective. They want you to follow a specific protocol. So that's why, again, being strategic about that, reaching out to the admission officers as well. Like this summertime is the downtime, if you will, in the admission world. So this is your time where you should start reaching out to admission reps and asking those questions about who would be a good person, what and what type of courses, for those teachers that are teaching, what are you looking for within that aspect? And so it can be a mentor as well. So if schools have a wide range of recommendations, so they offer, you can submit 2 to 3, but you can, add in a 4th or 5th, then it can be a mentor, a coach, something outside of academics is always important. That's always my recommendation. Focus in on 3 on academics, but if you are going to add a 4th or 5th, have something outside of school, so we can see a different skill set. Talking about, if you're part of like a youth group, if you held an internship. So those are just some of my recommendations if you're going to do something outside of academics.
great. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I also think that a lot of people applying for graduate school took a break from academia and start to work. You can also ask a job supervisor to give you a recommendation letter. You can also ask, like Joe said, a coach, for example, for any undergraduates doing any sports, that also speaks volumes on soft skills. And yeah, don't underestimate the power of, you know, the other work that you do besides academia. That's also very important too.
Thank you. I have a question here going back to skills, soft skills. Does a great set of hard skills can compensate little soft skills?
Do you want me to go
What,
ahead and start?
what do you think?
Yeah, yeah, Laura, you want to start on that one?
I love talking about soft skills. I think that it there should be a good combination of the two, because not enough soft skills are going to compensate for hard skills, and hard skills are not going to compensate for soft skills. Because the way that I see it, and the way that a lot of people in the in the recruitment world see it, is that you use soft skills to implement hard skills, and that's going to ultimately say how those hard skills are going to be, you know, what output is going to be you're going to get from them. So I don't think that necessarily, because yeah, you can be a great mathematician, but what if you can't work in a group? Where are you going to work if you do research with a group? You know, if you ever going to have to lead a team, how are you going to make that team, you know, do well? I think it's not a matter of compensating, but trying to find a balance, you know, and that's pretty natural to all of us. You know, we all have natural soft and hard skills.
I would agree with everything Laura said. That was
Great.
perfect.
All right, perfect. And one more question here is, do you recommend asking the teacher to write the letter of recommendation in English, or is it preferable to write it in their native language, Spanish, if that is the case, and then translate it? And what if they lose information in translation? How would you see that?
That's a phenomenal question. Very thorough, thought out. I would say if they have the ability to write in English, that's great, because you know some universities don't have the ability to translate. I mean, luckily for us in our office, we have folks that are bilingual. I know I got a letter recommendation this year in French, and I do not speak French, so we have someone in our office that speaks French, and they were able to translate it for me. But you have to just be wary of the schools that you're applying to, and those are some questions you want to reach out to the admission reps during the summer times and ask those questions to those specific universities, because they might just say, no, we want all of our recommendations to be in English. You do have the ability to, you know, you can get your, just like transcripts can be translated, you can do the same thing for the letter recommendation and send it your way. But if you want to be authentic, and if you know your recommender, maybe their English skills just aren't, you know, as proficient, then they can write it in their native language to make sure that they're not missing anything. And if that's their comfort level, and then you work at the next steps of getting that letter translated.
Yeah, I would just back up everything that Joe said. You can just, your best bet is to ask your admission reps, ask each university, because you know they might have the ability to translate the letters, but if not, then it's just gonna be like a lost letter, and that's never gonna be the intent. So yeah, go ahead and ask.
All right, great. Thank you. And we do have one for Laura here, specifically for you. It says, did you use the Common App to prepare your admissions for a graduate program? Or did you apply through a different platform? Did you use the
Oh
Common App?
no, I'm very old school and I don't trust websites. So I go ahead and look through rankings. So for my program, I went through the rankings and I independently started applying. And that's how I ended up here. And also, you know, I had experience studying here because my university from Colombia had a partnership with this university. So that's how I got introduced. That's basically why, how I ended up here. But now that I'm going to go on to my PhD and start applying in the fall, then I'll definitely, you know, keep those resources in mind.
Goes for both of you guys. We're getting a lot of questions, which is great. How would you see a letter from a mentor of a volunteering project if I want to apply to a bioengineering graduate program? How would you guys see it? How would this be positive, negative, or
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the institution that you're applying to. So if you are applying to a medical school, or they have that specific program. Again, going back, I keep harping on the research aspect, but that's where that research aspect comes in. If that letter of recommendation is going to a school like a Bentley where we don't have engineering, then that might not be the best letter of recommendation for our specific universities. But I do think having something for that, your mentor, that would be great. And again, they might have that longevity of seeing you develop over the course of time with an academic setting, social setting. And if they can speak to those different skill sets of why you'd be a good fit for their university, then by all means, choose them.
I feel that I'm going to talk about more about the graduate aspect. I think that is something very valuable to put, because more often than not, you're choosing your research topic. It has to be substantial. It has to be something that marks the world, that does something good for the world. And having, that volunteering experience shows that you care for, you're kind of altruistic in that sense, that you care about, your country, you care about your people, you care about things other than just, learning. And that's gonna make the difference into whether you make important research that makes a difference and stands out from just, oh, I'm gonna do research about and research some data and come to a conclusion, but it's not going to be significant for any population. But we do want research that's significant for lots of populations. So I think it's super valuable.
Can letters of recommendation expire, or you can reuse them? Let's say one from the previous year. That's an interesting question. I don't know how you guys can take.
I don't think they expire, because unless they get deleted off your computer, then they permanently expired. But I mean, as long as the letter or the name of the institution that you're applying to is not on there, as long as the date, you update the dates as well. But I mean, that's a very interesting question.
Yeah. I don't think they expire, but since a lot of institutions do ask the recommender to send them directly, I think the recommender is always gonna have to update them. And that's the thing, I would not encourage people to go to recommenders who have a template for recommendations, because that's not going to speak well of truly about who you are, but it's just going to give a general oh, she's good at this, she's good at that, but it's not going to be true. And you might find some discrepancies, as Joe said before, and that's not good.
All right. This is our last question. Should I include my political and let's see, and religion posture, or maybe only the ideology and academic part of me to increase success of admissions?
Can you say that one more time? Sorry, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the question.
Should I include my political and religion posture, or maybe only the ideology and academic part of me? Can this increase the success of admissions in my application?
That's another deep question. I think that you want to just kind of be neutral when it comes to your application. Obviously, be authentic to yourself, but also you don't know who is going to be reading your application. You never want to offend anybody or things like that. So, some schools will have multiple reading processes. So at Bentley, we have a 3-tier reading process. So your one application will be reviewed 3 different times by 3 different counselors. So that's 3 different perspectives going into your application, where some schools might only have just one reader. Some might just do completely committee based. We do, so you want to just be cognizant of that. I would just say, if your religion, or, if your religion is really important to you, obviously share that. I think it can get a little, gray area when it comes to your political views, but also you want to make, if your political views align with the schools that you're applying to, then by all means. But if they don't, then that's where, again, I would just, be cautious.
Right. And I guess also when we talked about volunteering, and we talked about, for example, putting a pastor as your recommender, I don't see anything wrong with that, as long as it was a genuine volunteering experience, and you think that it's completely valuable. But I would just refrain from putting anything trying to convince the admission committee. That's not a good approach. You want people to admit you to that school because of who you are, not just because they related to you and just because they could see. I refrain from doing that.
Wow. Thank you so much, Joseph and Laura. This has been a great insight into, a perspective on the other side here on the admissions process, the admissions office. So you guys are bringing a lot of information that I know our students internationally can take a lot from. And I'm pretty sure they're going to take advantage of all the advice and everything that you have said, all the information, and put it into practice when requesting those letters of recommendations to whether it be a teacher, extracurricular activities, or employer, whoever it is that will speak on behalf of them. So thank you so much for such a wonderful and insightful information. Now we will have the opportunity for you guys to present on your institution. So let's go ahead and do that right now.
Good to go.
Yes.
Wonderful. So now let's focus in a little bit about Bentley University. So we are a business university located in the greater Boston area. So this is a really beautiful aerial shot of our university. So this is just the tippy top of campus. We have kind of three tiers of campus: upper, middle, lower. This upper is more of academic centered here, but you can see the Boston skyline from the top of campus, which is great. We're about 9 miles or 15 kilometers from downtown Boston. We do provide transportation to and from the city, which is wonderful. In terms of access and transportation, we're about 25 minutes from Boston Logan International Airport. So the transportation factor from an international student, that's always important, I feel, being able to, the accessibility aspect. And, Boston is such an amazing college town. And then Waltham is right there. We're very, very close in proximity. So just a little bit about Bentley, who we are. We are currently ranked #1 by U.S. News and World Report for best regional university in the Northeast. So it's always great being #1. As I mentioned, we really are in a category of our own. We're not a large comprehensive university with, a business school attached to it. We're not a small liberal arts college with, an economics or finance major. We're not a specialized or technical school within a larger university. We like to think that we've taken the best of all three of those elements and created Bentley University. So we do identify as a business university. We're actually the only business-only university in the United States. 4,200 undergraduate students, really large international population as well. So 15% of the international students was just for this past class, but accumulatively between grad and undergrad, we have 23% international. So we are international focused at Bentley. In terms of the learning environment, we cap our classes at 35 students. Average class size is 24. So really you're getting that hands-on, learning opportunity. We are an experiential learning university. So we've invested over $300 million in state-of-the-art technology, in these high-tech learning labs. We have an on-campus trading room. Our trading room is equipped with 24 Bloomberg terminals. It's the largest university trading room in the country. It's set up to be a backup trading room to Boston, which is great as well. We have a media arts and culture lab. We have an accounting, economics, and finance lab. So all these different areas to really enhance the learning, both in and out of the classroom. Now, because my time is short and I want to be cognizant of Laura's presentation as well, just really quickly, Bentley, we're very career focused as well. So we're currently ranked #1 by the Princeton Review for best career services and job placement. We've been ranked, our career services has historically been top notch. We've been ranked in the top 5 for best career services each of the last 8 years. And college is your time to prepare for your time management skills, but also to prepare for career skills. And through our career services, you're going to be learning how to build a cover letter, write a resume, network like a pro, navigate through our different systems for internships. We have more internships than we do students, which is a good problem to have. Obviously, being in the Boston area, it allows for a lot of opportunity to get that expertise. And the best way to get the hands-on learning is no doubt through internships. As you can see here, this is from this past class, so 98% job placement rate, and our starting salary actually went up in the pandemic to $62,000 for starting salary, which is pretty impressive. And like I said, the business is everywhere, and whether it's corporate, education, startups, healthcare, you name it. And so having a foundation in business will serve you well for your career. And the business world is ever changing. And so that's why you can see here 92% of our students complete one internship, around 76% of our students, or 72% complete more than one. And that's because like I said, the job market is changing and we want you to have multiple experiences. There's value in figuring out what you don't want to do for the rest of your life, just as there's value in figuring out what you do want to do. Just real quickly, student life, over 100 clubs and organizations. We do have NCAA athletics as well. So we're Division II for sports, except for our men's hockey program. We do have a Division I men's hockey team. Majority of our athletic facilities are on campus, so on-campus football field, we have a swimming pool, track, other athletic fields, on-campus hockey rink. 98% of our first year students live on campus, about 84% of students live on campus all 4 years. So a lot of activities for students to get involved in, ranging from performing arts to cultural organizations to competitive dance clubs. We do have Greek life, about 20% of our students participate in Greek life. So a lot to do on campus. And one of the big stats that I always like highlighting as well, we have a 92% first year retention rate. And the retention rate is the percentage of students returning back to that specific institution after that first year. So that 92% is one of the highest in the country. The national average for retention rate is around 73%. So Bentley is definitely doing something right. And then just real quickly, just so I can go through this, we do accept the common application. We have 3 different types of application tracks. We have regular decision, early decision 1, and early decision 2. Both those are binding, and then regular decision is non-binding. Letters of recommendation, 2 to 3 letters of recommendation. We are looking for your high school transcript, and then senior grades. Senior grades is so important. And then test scores is highlighted in red. So we are test optional. We were test optional last year. We'll be test optional this year as well. More to come on if we will be going fully test optional, because historically we did require either the SAT or ACT. And then for international students, if English is not your first language, we do also require an English proficiency exam. So we accept either the TOEFL, the IELTS, and now we also accept the Duolingo exam as well. So I will stop my presentation now and turn it over to Laura.
That was a great presentation, Joe. Bentley sounds great. Please invite Emporia State one of these days. Okay, so we're gonna talk about Emporia State University, one of my favorite things to talk about. Okay, we're gonna talk about our university profile. We were the first public institution of higher education in the state of Kansas. We currently have a student population of 5,700 students, out of which around 400 are international students from over 60 countries. And we're also a master's comprehensive university, which means that we do undergraduate and graduate level classes, but up to the master's, we only have 1 doctorate program, which means that our students have more access to the professors. They have more access to research opportunities, because the PhD students aren't just hoggling the professors all to themselves. Here are a couple of our undergraduate degree programs. We have majors and minors. So as you can see, we have a lot of programs. And what we don't have, we have as pre-professional programs. Like, for example, we don't have medicine, but we do have like pre-medical or engineering. We have pre-engineering and things like that. And here are a couple of the scholarships that we offer. The most interesting one that we have, in my opinion, is the Diversity Award, which reduces tuition costs for undergraduate students around 55%, and for graduate students 50%. We also have presidential scholarships, which depend on GPA and SAT scores, and departmental and talent scholarships for undergraduates. And then for graduate students, we have graduate assistantships, which cover your tuition and also pay you a stipend, which is also like a salary every 2 weeks, so you can also pay for everything that you need here. And a couple of pretty pictures about Emporia, about your university, about some activities that we do. And yeah, we also consider ourselves the school of everything is possible, because everything is possible here at Emporia State.
Thank you both, and for so much information on these great institutions. We have some questions here. What is the acceptance rate for Bentley and Emporia for international students?
So we don't break it down by international and domestic students. We kind of look at it as a whole, because when you are applying to Bentley, you're just, and this is something I forgot to mention, you're applying to just the Bentley as a whole. You're not applying to a specific program. You're not applying to just the finance program or just, the accounting program. You're applying just to Bentley. So all students come into the pool together as both domestic and international students. So you're kind of, we look at it from like a countrywide perspective as well. But our admit rate, I don't have the updated rate, but I know last year we were around 43% for our admit rate. We're still kind of collecting data for this past year. Probably a little bit higher, just given, the uncertainty with some, countries and students not being able to come to the United States and things like that. So we offered a little bit more spots just for a safety net, if you will.
Great.
For Emporia State, I'm not exactly sure about the numbers, but the applications that have gone through me, and I only go through international applications, at least this cohort of 2021 spring, the vast majority has been admitted. There have also been really strong candidates. A couple have not been admitted because GPA. That's especially for graduate students, because we need to be more competitive in that aspect. But undergraduate students, it's pretty flexible. Like we're willing to learn with you as long as you know that you have strong credentials and strong motivation to keep learning. We're willing to work with you 100%.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Are you guys offering distance education or online education at this moment for those international students that are unable to travel, or because of all the restrictions because of the pandemic?
So yeah, so I'll focus in on like this past year and then talk about what we're doing for the fall. So this past year, Bentley actually, we were back on campus. So we were one of the only schools in our area. We did it. We were at 60% capacity and kind of focused more on like local students that were able to, physically be on campus. And we did offer both synchronous and asynchronous learning hybrid approach as well. We equipped all of our classroom space with updated technology to make sure that all of our students, had the appropriate resources. And a lot of positives came up from that. A lot of students were like, man, we wish lectures could be recorded like this all the time. So those are some positives that have come from the virtual learning. As we shift towards the fall, we are going to be 100% back in person. But we are going to be working with students if, obviously if they can't get their visas, in time or whatever, those certain restrictions, we'll be working with them to, try to support them with some virtual learning opportunities. But for the most part, it's going to be back in person.
Yeah, Emporia State also has a hybrid setting. The students that want to come to campus are more than able to, and the students that are back home, we did have a couple of students, but I guess for the vast majority, everyone was back on campus this semester.
Excuse me. Thank you. And one question that I have here is if you guys could share your contact information on the chat box so that students can maybe write or reach to you guys. That's a request that we have from our audience. Please. By the way, this is our upcoming events for June. Right, next week, as I said earlier, we have playing sports in college at 4 p.m. This will be on June 9th. All right, so don't miss it. We also have another one. We call it Webinars Wednesday. All right, every Wednesdays we will be promoting and broadcasting this session. So don't miss it out. I want to thank you both, Laura and Joseph, for providing so much information, so much insight from admissions perspective on this important component of the admissions process. So thank you again. And I hope you guys have a great afternoon over there.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. Bye.
Bye.
Likewise. Thank you all so much.